It is estimated that there are over 153 million orphans worldwide, and the cost of adoption is on the rise. Where is the hope? After losing his parents at the age of 12 in a tragic automobile accident, JT Olson, along with his 4 siblings, became orphans. The uncertainty of his life and future were placed in the hands of his extended family, but God had other plans for JT and his wife Sarah, and used his past to place him on a journey that would impact orphans and widows worldwide. This is his story of unshakable faith. This is today's life. JT, tell me about your ministry, Both Hands.
I love talking about Both Hands because it's such a God story. It really is. I was on the, like I said earlier, I was on the board of Bethany Christian Services, and one year they said, you're in charge of the fundraiser this year. So I chose to do a golf tournament. And it was one where you mail letters out to people and you say, would you sponsor me while I golf, you know? Well, I mailed all my letters out like I was supposed to. And one of my guys who I was in a Bible study with, he mails my letter back to me, but he doesn't send me a check. He had taken a magic marker, scribbled across the letter. He said, JT, if you told me you were working on a widow's house, I might sponsor you, but you're just golfing. Nice cause, but not my money. Wow. Well, now that hurt my feelings a little bit, but at the same time I thought, that's a pretty good idea. So, I mean, a couple days later I called him and we talked about it and laughed, but I just never, the idea never left me. Whenever I saw a 5K race or any kind of golf tournament going on, I always asked myself, if they were working on a widow's house, would that be more compelling? Would it be more, I mean, would it be better? You know, would it be more effective? A couple years after I got that letter, I run into a good friend of mine at church, Don Meyer, and I hadn't seen Don in a couple months. I said, Don, what's up? He said, I'm adopting 4 kids from Moldova. I said, what happened? He said, well, I went to Moldova on a mission with Sweet Sleep. We were delivering beds to orphanages. And I fell in love with this little boy, George. And throughout the week, we were inseparable. And by the end of the week, we decided we're going to start the adoption process. And we found out in the process, he's got 3 siblings. And then Don looked at me and says, we're not going to break the siblings up. Well, I'm the just right guy to say that to. And I just looked at him and I didn't, you know, I didn't say, you're crazy, are you sure? I just looked at him and I remember so clearly the thought that went through my head when I looked at him. And that was, here is a man who's trusting God in a way that I covet. I want to have that kind of faith. And I just looked at him, I said, Don, how much that's going to cost? He said, about $65,000. I said, do you have any idea how you're going to raise that money? He gave me that deer in the headlights look like no, and I said, I think I got an idea. And so, long story short, we got together, put together a plan. We recruited about 13, 14 friends of ours, mostly old buddies from Southwestern, you know, and we all mailed letters out to everyone we knew saying, would you sponsor me for the day while I work on this widow's house? All the money I raise is going to go towards the cost of bringing these 4 kids from Moldova home. And I found a widow in Nashville who needed help. We got all the supplies donated. So we didn't spend any money. I mean, we spent money on stamps, but that was it. And we spent the day working on our house. And when it was all over, we had raised about $55,000. Oh my God. That's enough to make you giddy. I mean, I was literally expecting 10 or 15, but 55,000? I mean, that's just amazing.
So how has Both Hands grown?
Well, another 6 months after that, a buddy came up to me and said, hey, I heard what you did with Don, would you help me? And I said, sure, we'll do it again. We did it again. He needed to raise about $13,000. We raised about $12,000. And I remember that so well because little things happened in that were just miracles. I remember standing on the roof of that house. We put a new roof on. And even the way we got the roof is a God story. I happened to be, business I was in, recruiting, I was in the construction industry. I just happened to know most of the presidents of the local construction companies. I called one. He said, what do you need? I said, a new roof. He said, it'll be there. Just donate it. But I remember being on the roof and that scene from my childhood with all those tractors in the field, because I counted 19 cars in the street. We had 52 people showed up and worked that day. It was beautiful. And I remember going out to eat with my wife that night, and we're talking about this, and she looked at me and she said, "You are positively aglow." And I said, "Yeah, I think this is what I'm supposed to do." And she was a homeschool, stay-at-home mom. Within a month, she was working at the local university in an entry-level position so we could have some insurance and some income. Within 5 months, I left my company and we started Both Hands. And we've done, to date, we've done 655 projects in 42 states.
Oh my goodness.
788 kids.
How many adoptions?
788 kids are no longer orphans.
Oh my goodness.
And 724 widows have been
God
blessed.
is so good, isn't it?
Yeah. It's awesome.
Do you have any stories you can share? Any more?
One in particular that I remember, where there was a project in Dallas, and they were working on this lady's house. She lived in what was a crack house neighborhood. It was going through gentrification, so some of the houses were being remodeled and some of them weren't. Well, she lived there for like 30 or 40 years. And they went in and worked on her house. And the next day, they all went to about the same church. The next day, one of the guys that was on the team said to another guy on the team, I think his name was Jose, and he said, "Jose, I noticed you were kind of quiet yesterday working on that house. You're usually not that quiet." He said, "What was going on?" And Jose, in front of his Sunday school class, said, "Well, you don't realize this, but I became a Christian 9 years ago." And his kids were with him on the day of the project. He said, "But 17 years ago, I owned one of those crack houses." And Sister Mary would come out and I remember her praying for us. I remember one point lying down with my handcuffs behind my back on the street, and she'd walk up and down the street and she was praying for us. And to be there working at her house was just an amazing story. I mean, you hear stories like that, it's a blessing.
It is a blessing. Now, how many states are you in?
Well, we've done projects in 42 states.
42 states. And how can people get a hold of, I mean, do people contact you all
Yeah, they can get us on anyone who's adopting is going to do some searches on funding, and Both Hands Foundation is going to show up. You know, anyone who needs to raise money. We're not an adoption agency. All we do is help families raise money, and they get the money in the form of a grant from us. And the great thing about it, we've raised $7.6 million, and 100% of that money has gone towards the cause. We don't take anything for our operations. I set it up that way.
So you're helping the orphans and the widows.
And the widows. And you know what? It's a win-win-win-win, because the orphan wins, the widow wins, the people on the team win. Because what I'm finding is the people who give their life away, it makes a difference. It fills a spot in their heart that we're all made to, and that is to give it away. And when they give it away, they spend a day working on a Both Hands project, they're never going to be the same.
Oh. JT, thank you so much. And thank you for Both Hands Ministry. Are you wanting to adopt and you're on the same journey as JT was? Or are you pregnant and you feel that the only option is to terminate that pregnancy? My dear friend, with God, all things are possible. Trust Him with your circumstances. He's in the midst of them. Let Him show you the way and the truth so that one day you too can share your story of unshakable faith and give Him glory. This is today's life. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.